what we are going to be talking about, a lot of it is covered, and I did have the link. A lot of it's covered in this book called Atomic Habits. I'm going to just put this link in the chat. It's about a 6-hour long book. And just want to get my notes here. It's about a 6-hour long book. Highly recommend it. So a lot of what we're talking about today comes from that book. You guys can feel free to read it. But I want to start with the story. All right, I'm going to start with the story, and then we're going to make it relevant to our business. So in 2003, the British cycling team, all right? So we're talking about sports right now. Cody's on my screen for some reason. Let's make it gallery. All right, so the British cycling team in 2003 wasn't doing so good, all right? In 100 years since 1903, they'd only won one gold medal in the Olympics, all right? They had never won a Tour de France. And they decided to hire this guy, Dave Brailsford, and they hired him as a cycling director. And what Dave did was he started to look at all of the systems of the cyclists, and he had this thing called aggregation of marginal gains, which basically meant that he looked at all the systems that made the bike rider ride a bike, and he broke them all down into separate aspects. And then it was his goal to improve each system by 1%. And the combination of all these systems being improved just a little bit would allow all of the bike riders within a race to achieve their goals better. That was his theory. All right. So when it came to the systems, he did things like, what do the bike seats look like? Are they comfortable? Can we make them more comfortable? All right. How are their off-bike workouts? Can we hook them up to biofeedback machines and make sure that we're maximizing their workouts? What do the tires look like? Can we make the tires stickier, right? What about the massage gels that they're getting in PT? Can we test them to see which ones are the ones that are going to reduce the inflammation the most? What about little things like, how are their mattresses? How are their pillows? How are they washing their hands? Are they washing their hands properly so that they don't get sick and take time off training? They even looked at the truck that they used to tune up the bicycles, and they painted the entire inside of the truck white so that dirt and dust would be easy to spot, because all of that dust and dirt getting in the chains of the bike would reduce the effectiveness of the bike. And so this was his entire strategy, was just look at all of the systems. We'll basically cut up everything into systems and then try and make the systems just a little bit better. And in 5 years, they went to an Olympics and they won 60% of the gold medals in the Olympics. All right. So a year before that, or 4 years after that, they went to London and they had 9 Olympic records, 4 world records. And that same year, the first Briton won the Tour de France. The next year after that, this guy named Bradley Wiggins won the Tour de France. And then Chris Froome won in 2015, 16, and 17. So we had this guy come in and start making changes in their systems in 2003. And 4 years later, from 2007 for 10 years to 2017, the Britons, they like dominated. All right. They dominated. They had 178 world championships, 66 Olympic medals, 5 Tour de France victories. And this is like the most successful run in cycling history. All right. And all he did was look at the systems and try and make each individual system 1% better. All right. So if you take a 1% improvement on any system, anything that you're doing over a year, we're 37 times better. All right. So let me see. I got a chart here. And if you get 1% worse every day, you basically go down to about 0. So 37 times. All right, I think it's 3,700% better if you're 1% better every single day. Gosh, my computers are so not awesome right now. Share screen. All right, I'm not going to look at that. So the point is that we've got massive gains if we get 1% better every single day. And if we're getting 1% worse every day, we pretty much, if you guys take the number 1 and then times it by 0.99%, which is 1% worse than 1, right? 0.99%, and you did that over and over and over again for 365 days, you pretty much go down from 1 to 0.03. You pretty much go from 1 to almost 0 if you get 1% worse every single day. And so when you're thinking about Purium and you're thinking about your workflow, if you're doing 1% less today and then you do 1% less the next day, of course, over the year, you're done, right? You're not doing anything. But the reverse is true. If you're doing 1% more today, and then 1% more today, and then 1% more today, you're going 37 times more effective in a year. All right. So imagine yourself 37 times more effective in a year from now than you are today. And we can do that by looking at the systems that make us great. So just like I mentioned that bike thing, we're going to break into groups right now, and we're going to start making lists of what are the stickier tire, better massage gel, better mattresses, better hand soap. Like, what are those systems within our business? So we're going to compile a list in groups, breaking up our systems into different aspects so that we know what we can start looking at to make them 1% better. Do you guys get that? So I'm going to break us into systems or into groups, and we're just going to start listing systems. Let's get in the chat, like what can an example of one of these systems be? Just so we're clear on this.
Sales.
So sales could be one. I would say follow-up, right, is a function of sales, right? So that would be more of a system of sales. So sales is a little bit broad, but yeah, follow-up, social media campaigns, starting conversations with new people. Yeah, so we're gonna get in a breakout room for 4 minutes. I want you guys writing in your chat, in your breakout room, all the systems, and 4 minutes is a lot. All right. After about 60 seconds, your guys' brain is going to be kind of getting empty. I want you to keep on brain dumping systems, and maybe the last minute you talk about it. All right. So we're going to be in there for 5 minutes total. I'm going to put 7 to 8 participants in a room, 5 minutes total, 4 minutes brain dump, 2 minutes, last 2 minutes. So I'm 6 minutes total. Last 2 minutes, talk about it.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Just heard an echo. Just gonna mute everybody. All right. What were some examples? Practice what you preach. That would be.
Brian took notes.
Yeah, guys, if you didn't take notes, hopefully you have a good memory. All right. So we got follow up, make sure, because these are just identifying the systems. We're going to have to also then determine how to make these systems a little bit better. All right. So putting Zooms in calendars. Yeah, that's an example of how to increase your organization system. Learning back office, right? That's an example of increasing organization. Discipline, ask specific questions, follow up, onboarding, consistency. Good. All right. So you guys see that our entire business, basically your entire career, is made up of a series of systems. And systems, am I recording? I'm like, I've got fear of not recording because it's happened so many times. So systems are what allows us to make progress, right? So the thing with what we normally do, because our entire business is gamified, right? And that allows for us to be addicted to playing it, right? Because there's always a goal, and goals are awesome. As I was saying in the beginning, goals are something that allows us to set direction. It is super important to have a goal, but we also need systems. Now there's a little bit of an issue in the human experience with focusing on systems, because usually systems don't offer gratification immediately, right? If we decide that we're going to implement a system to get healthier by going to the gym every single day and eating healthy, it's likely that after one day, nothing really changes, right? Going to the gym one day, eating doesn't change. If you've been going to the gym every single day for a year, one day probably doesn't make much of a difference. Same thing with a bad habit, right? A bad habit, that 1% less on one day, you know, if you eat crappy for an entire day, it's not going to do much. All right. You might look bloated, right? Depending on how you do this, but it's not going to do much. So we have what's called the plateau of latent potential. And so there's a, all right, I actually do have I found my graphs, but it's not showing up on Zoom. This is hilarious. All right. So anyways, there's going to be a lag. All right. There's going to be a lag, and there's going to be almost a dip that you're going to notice because you're doing you're progressing, you're putting in effort and nothing's happening. So it's not about the day, it's about the compounding effect. All right. So all of these systems are going to build up. Now, I just want to differentiate between goals and systems, because if you think about a goal, all right. So if you think about that British cycling team, their goal was always to win medals, right? Even before all the systems were looked at and improved upon there, and they even had the systems before. It's the improvement of systems that matters. It's not the awareness of systems, it's the improvement of the systems. But also the awareness of the goal never changed, right? They always wanted to win. And so a lot of times we think that people that get success are the ones that wanted it more, right? That's usually like the glory stories, is about how they wanted it more. And so in our minds, we feel that really what's important is knowing what we want. And that's intending, right? We got The Secret, things like that. But like I'm constantly talking about, manifestation is a combination of the goal, right? The vision setting, your thoughts, your faith, and if you can even feel yourself in that reality, and the actions, right? Thoughts, feelings, and actions. So within the systems, that's the action. So goal setting is important, but it's not everything, right? If you have two teams competing against each other, they all want to win. They both want to win, but staring at the scoreboard and waiting for the score to change to your favor isn't going to do much. Just like looking at our back office and wanting to be executive so badly isn't going to bring us to executive, right? Wanting to be diamond, wishing about being crown. Those things don't let us be crown, right? Winners and losers have the same goals, but there's a difference between winners and losers, right? It's not the goal that's going to determine the difference. It's the system that achieves the outcome. Also, I'm going to kind of like diss goals for a little bit here. All right. Just so you guys understand that the systems and making sure that we're improving systems is important. Goals also are just momentary achievements. All right. And so if you wanted to clean your room, for example, you had a goal of having a clean room. So you clean your room and you have achieved the goal. You've momentarily achieved the goal of cleaning the room. But if you didn't change the system, the habits, right? Your habit of being sloppy, if you didn't affect the system that created the dirty room, you're going to once again have a dirty, sloppy room very, very soon. All right. So we don't want to just treat the system. We want to address the cause, and the cause is the systems that led to not having a clean room. All right. Also, I see this in sports a lot. Goals and goal setting and just being fixated on a goal, it restricts the level of happiness that you allow yourself to feel on a day-to-day basis, right? Once I reach my goal, I will be happy. So you're not allowing your current self to be happy. You're placing the happiness in your future self. And I see this in Purium too, guys. I'm going to be happy when I get to diamond. Well, when you get to diamond, guess what there is? There's green diamond. And usually even before you get to diamond, you're thinking about, oh, it'd be so great to be green diamond. So as soon as you get to diamond, you're happy for maybe the last few hours of the month. And then the next day starts and now you're like unhappy because you're not green diamond. And same thing with green diamond to blue diamond. So putting your entire identity in a goal is going to restrict the happiness that you have, which is then going to restrict the effectiveness that you have of connecting with people. All right. And so for long-term progress, we really need to focus on systems, because this goal thing, right? How many of you guys invited? So I'm just going to use one of our goal setting systems as an example. How many of you guys got, well, I listed out the names, right? Cody, I'm just going to use you as an example. Please don't take this personal. Cody, you invited 20 people to the first Zoom, was it? Or the second Zoom? First Zoom. Cody, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you get 20 people?
It was hard to tell with all the iPhone stuff, so it's hard to say. But I invited about 37 people.
All right. I won't use you as an example. I'll just use everyone as an example. So there's yet to be somebody that's invited 20 people 2 times in a row. All right. So setting goals can lead to burnout, right? Where you just actually like do everything to reach a goal. And then the next week or the next day, you're just like done. We see this in dieting. We see this in sports, right? You guys might not know the background story of Shaquille O'Neal. There's also like, he basically, once he won the ring, he started partying. This happens in race car driving. I watched a movie on Netflix about, I forget the name of it, but it happens a lot in sports where as soon as somebody reaches the championship, then it's like game over. All right. So putting your entire identity in a goal will lead to yo-yo, right? Where you're like going for the goal and then you just drop. Within network marketing, that's super dangerous, because if we take a month off in network marketing, our team takes a month off, and our team thinks that it's normal to take a month off. And so when we take a month off, it's not just us taking a month off, it's our entire team basically dissolving. And that entire team could have taken you a year and a half to build. All right. And you take a month off because you think like, all right, I made it to my goal, I'm going to take a month off. They take a month off, their team takes a month off, their team takes a month off. And it's just this cycle. And then your organization fails. So some problems with goal settings is that everybody has the same goal. So the goal actually is a little bit not what makes you achieve the event. And it's a momentary change without addressing the cause. It restricts our happiness, and it also could cause you to get burnt out. All right. So a lot of us talk about us rising to the level of our goals, but really it's impossible for us to rise higher than the level of our systems. Okay, so you guys remember the systems that we just went over? It seemed like, were you guys talking about how to improve the systems or just listing down the systems? Because if you guys have a list, we really got to look at that list, which is what I wanted to use the next breakout room for, and determine how to increase the effectiveness of these systems. So let's just do some right now. Let's do a three-way call with a customer. What would be a way to improve that system? In the chat. I'll start. Scripts, exactly. Knowing, so Bo said scripts, knowing what to say, preparation, practice. Practice is everything. Doing it, action, yes. Making sure that you know what the greeting is, make sure you know what the person wants and needs, make sure you know the close, the proposal, make sure you know the questions. Angela, what's PMA? Performance.
Positive mental attitude.
Yes, that is huge. I just thought of something, but posture, right? Maybe even knowing how you're going to follow up and talking to the person about that before you close this conversation. Your tone of voice. Guys, tone of voice, these things matter. If you don't think it matters, you should do some chanting. Just do like 3 minutes of ohms before speaking, and you'll see. So you guys can see there's like literally a list of 50 different ways that we can improve a simple system. Let's do another system. A conversation with the brand partner, right? A conversation with their brand partner about being in action. A distributor launch. Bo, thank you for the proper terminology. Let's start in the beginning. A brand partner launch. Let's say that's a system, because it is a system. Brand partner launch. How could we improve that? Plug them into the trainings. Can we copy a save chat notes? Using I would invite you to instead of telling them you have to, right? That's really good. Implementing language, implementing vocabulary, certain vocabulary into your language. Understand their why, understand their lives, their vision, bring it to life. Listen Basically, that's how we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Assignments, JP. Assignments for sure. Challenges. Let's do one more. What's another system? You guys have a list. What's another system that you guys came up with? Inviting. So inviting to an event. What are some ways to improve the effectiveness of inviting to an event? Following up, even, and so what I'm assuming is following up on the invite. You did the invite, then you follow up beforehand to make sure that that is confirmed. Making sure that you're not deciding no for the person that you're inviting before they even get to decide, right? That's the, don't judge who you're inviting. Invite everyone, allow them to decide no. Provide value to them during the invite. Tracking who you're inviting, tracking the yes or no's, exactly. Use Calendly to book their invites. Ask for support. Ask for support's huge, guys. A lot of us don't know how to do these simple things. You guys have levels and levels and levels of people in your upline that are invested in your success. They're highly motivated to help you. We are highly motivated to help you. Keep sharing your story. Create time slots throughout your day to invite. Okay, great. I'm gonna move on to the next topic. It's kind of like a subtopic, guys. I was talking to somebody who's on the call right now about stopping smoking weed. And not that he needed this coaching, but you know what? I'll just, like, if you're trying to quit smoking, right? There's a difference between identifying as somebody who is trying to quit smoking versus identifying as I don't smoke, right? So the goal is to identify identify how we're being, all right? So if we think about outcomes, that's the goals, right? That's what we want to get, right? I want to quit smoking. That's identifying with the outcome, right? I want to quit smoking. The processes are the systems that we're talking about, right? So there's the system to quit smoking, and then there's the identity. So we've got outcomes, processes, and identity. Identity is what's going to drive the process, and then the outcome is going to happen automatically. So instead of starting at the outcome, well, instead of knowing the outcome and just fixating on that, we really do have to work backwards, right? We have to identify what the outcome that we want is, not smoking, and then we have to be the person that doesn't smoke. Or we can't just stay in the, I want this outcome, I want this outcome, I want to be diamond, I want to be executive, I'd love to get fast start director. We really have to be what we want, right? So the goal isn't to read a book, it's to be a reader. Then reading books are going to happen automatically. The goal isn't to run a marathon, it's to be a runner, right? So when we start thinking about the goal of Diamond, right? Which I talked about earlier in this call with Diamond Club. I also talked about the goal of inviting 20 people to the call on Thursday. I also talked about the goal of having a launch call and inviting 20 of your own people to your launch call. These are all goals. What we have to think about are, we have to go backwards and think about the person that invites 20 people to the call in 5 days. What are they doing? What are the systems they are doing? Right? So and then we have to be that. So once we just identified a bunch of different systems written down by a bunch of different people. A lot of them have a lot more experience than you, likely. All right. So we know what systems are there, and then we have to then implement them into our life, right? So we have to be the person that is a crown, right? How does a crown do a certain thing? That's why attending Leslie Zann's calls and Michael and Lucy's calls are important. And, you know, in these calls, we focus a lot on techniques and systems, but in these other calls, you hear a lot of stories from a lot of different people. And these stories, you actually understand what it's like to be a blue diamond. So we really have to identify with that, all right? And not be just so focused on what you achieve, but we really have to figure out the systems of what does it take to be this type of person. And we really have to get, and so I'm going to talk a little bit, hopefully I have time to talk about like how to implement these habits into our life. So most of our identity is made up by what we do, okay? And so if we think about everything that we do is essentially a program, right? You guys have heard this. And so if I see my phone and I wonder, do I have a text message? I pick up the phone and I see if I have a text message and I get the reward of seeing if I have a text message. Likely I do, right? And so that's just an example of a system that we've all implemented as a program, right? And that's running our life. So we've got a series of systems, right? If we walk into a dark room, we don't like it being dark. We want to see what's in the darkness. So we turn on the light and then we get the reward of seeing, right? So we've got cues, which then lead our habits because we're searching for rewards. And so we want to be able to start designing our life so that our environment is stimulating us to do the habits, which are really systems that are going to lead to our success. All right. So once again, there's a cue, which is something that tells us what to do. All right. So it's I see my phone is a cue. Then there's a craving. So this is just what drives behavior. There's a craving. I wonder what's on inside the screen. I wonder what's in the program of the phone. So then I pick it up. That's the habit. I pick up the phone and then I seek for the reward and I get the reward. So then I basically associate seeing my phone, which is the cue, with getting the reward, which is achieved through the habit. Same thing with walking to work and you pass a donut store and you wonder, what's in there? I want a donut. And you get a craving for a donut. So you go in and you buy a donut. That's the habit. And then you get to eat the donut. And then you start associating walking to work with eating a donut. And so you just start going to the donut store every single day. We want to associate waking up in the morning and maybe working on our Purium business if we want to get successful. And so there's some things that I just want to go over that allow us to start shaping our habits. And it's basically shaping our cues, shaping the cravings, shaping the habits, and then shaping the reward. So first of all, if you guys want to, let's say, reach out to a certain amount of people every single day, right? You're going to need a cue for that. So you're going to need an intention for reaching out to a certain amount of people a day. We want to make it obvious. All right. We all know that that's something we should be doing as a DMO, but a really good way to make it obvious, to make it stand out, is to design our environment so that that cue stands out. Right. And maybe that means that you go to a certain part of your house or a certain part of your room at a certain time of the day. So a lot of us are doing Purium like all over the place, right? Because we can, wherever our phone is, we can be working on Purium. But maybe we set the cue that starts the chain reaction to our action as when I sit in this particular chair, right? Like, let's say you have a studio apartment, right? I have an office. When I come in here, I work. That's my cue setting. I don't work in bed, right? Because in bed, I'm sleeping, right? So that's when I go to bed, I want to design my body to associate bed with sleep. When I sit down at this desk, I associate this with work. I don't play at this desk, right? I don't play video games here. If I were to implement video games, I would do it in another part of the house. So you guys want to just design your environment so that at specific spots, that's what starts behavior. And if that means that on this particular side of the kitchen table, let's say you only have 2 chairs in your kitchen table. Well, 1 chair is the work chair, 1 chair is the eating chair, right? So start making your cues for work obvious, right? It's like the start. A lot of us are familiar with the fact that, like, if you join a gym that has a coach, like a class-based gym, like a yoga studio, really all you have to do is get there, right? You just have to get there. And so it's the same thing with work. Design your work environment so that when you place yourself in a location, that's what starts, right? Now, how do we get ourselves to start? How do we get ourselves to crave working? We have to make it attractive for ourselves, right? So an easy way to do that is pair the work that we have to do with something that you want to do. So let's say video games is your thing. So just design a program, a law, so to speak, where every day, if you want to play video games, that means you need to do X in your business, right? So you can bundle your temptations with your work. After this work habit, after I do this work system, then I can do the thing that I want to do. Right? So there's a whole bunch of different techniques that we could use, but we want to make sure that our environment's set up where it's easy for us to work, right? That we're around people that are doing something with their life. Maybe make sure that we're away from the environments that allow us to just get distracted. And we want to create a ritual that motivates us into action. If you guys are having trouble being in action in Purium, you guys are going to have to design a system that motivates yourself. What do you like doing? Maybe every time you work on Purium, maybe it's a system, right? Every time you reach out to new prospects, you get to have a bowl of ice cream. Start looking at your things that you're almost addicted to, that you love doing, and start pairing them with action. And you want to make it easy. All right. So the habit is the action, right? So we got the cue, which is the environment. Then we've got the craving. How do we allow ourselves to crave doing the habit, which is like, I get to eat ice cream if I'm doing this, right? I get to play a video game. I get to exercise after I do the work, right? We want to make the actual work easy for ourselves. So if we tell you guys to invite 20 people to a launch call, and you're like, that's way too hard for me, that's okay. What number is easy for you? Right? Like where are you at? We want to just make it easy. A good analogy for this is if there's a hose that has a kink in it, we don't just increase the water pressure, we undo the kink, right? So if there's a kink that's stopping you guys from moving forward, if the things that you think you need to do, the habits are too difficult, you got to figure out how to make it easy. A lot of times that means getting on the phone and calling your upline and saying, hey, I don't know how to do this thing. Can you help me out? And then they will make it easy for you. And then we have to make it satisfying. We do have to give ourselves immediate sort of like reward. So we want to make it enjoyable for ourselves. A way to do that is to track. A good way, like let's say your goal is to reach out to 5 people a day. Get a jar, put 5 pennies in it, and get an empty jar. Do you know how satisfying it's going to be after you reach out to one person, you take a penny out and put it into the second jar? You take a penny out, the second person, and put that excitement of watching that happen and then finishing that last one, that's going to be extremely satisfying for you. Yeah, paper clips. Paper clips is kind of like how this whole, it's called the paperclip strategy. Same thing with brand partners, guys. You want to reach out to 3 brand partners and check in a day for some of you guys in the diamond levels. That's something that could be something for you to do. Make just that visual cue is satisfying. We get visually satisfied. That's what drives a lot of our behavior. All right. And then you would do the opposite. I'm almost finished here. You would do the opposite to break bad habits. All right. So what was the first thing I said? Make it obvious. If you want to break a bad habit, make it invisible. Let's say you watch too much TV. Unplug the TV. So that way, whenever you need to watch, wherever you're going to sit down and watch TV, you're going to have to get up and plug it in. Take the batteries out of the remote. If you really want, if TV is a real bad habit, you might want to unplug your TV and move it in the closet. That way, anytime you want to watch TV, you got to really want to watch TV, right? So you want to make, instead of making it obvious, you want to make it invisible. Same thing with the next part. If you have a bad habit, you want to make it unattractive. You want to make it difficult. You want to make it unsatisfying. You want to start pairing things that you don't like with your bad habits. If I do this thing that I like doing, but I know isn't good for me, then I also have to do this other thing, right? I have to, if I, you can even say, if I don't do anything in Purium, I have to donate money. Like you got to just like make rules and laws in your head to make your bad habits invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. And you guys can program your entire reality like that. And then your entire being will start shifting. So you need to make our habits easy, attractive, satisfying, obvious, and we want to start making our bad habits out of sight, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. And you guys can build on this to design a brand new life. And we just need to implement those systems and implement these policies within our framework to start building a business. And even if you guys take 1% of what I said today to make 1% of your systems 1% better every single day, it's going to add up, right? Over the long term, it's going to compound. All right. That's all I'm going to do. I also don't want to keep you guys long. So I think I'm going to end this unless somebody wants to take co-host and stay on for a half hour and talk. But yeah, guys, there's a few days left in the month. All right. So we talked a lot about systems. Make sure that as you're setting your goals for the end of the month, that you understand that this isn't about the next 3 days. The next 3 days, you guys have tremendous opportunity to reach for the goals. But then we need to keep those, like the purpose of that is because this is what we do at the end of the month to lead us into action next month. So a lot of you guys have heard this, but your paycheck today is a result of the last 90 days of your work. So what you're doing today, it may get you paid tomorrow, but really it's setting you up for your future. All right. So Lucy's call is happening right now. Check our Slack. Seema, if you could post that in Slack, you guys can go to Slack and get on Lucy and Michael's call. All right. Have a good morning, everybody, and let us know if you need any help. Sayonara.